Hello and welcome. You're listening to Building Blank with your hosts Travis and Greg.
Where we talk about everything world building, from the lowest dungeon to the highest peak.
And today we dive into the world of Mooks. Hey Greg, how about you go ahead and Mook my day?
You stole my tagline. I was going to say it.
Yeah, what's up,
we're already on episode 14.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Mooks today.
That's awesome. So, what is a Mook?
Well, it's simply defined as a stupid or incompetent person, and it's not based exactly on that, but it's kind of on the incompetent part.
Okay.
It's just like that mindless, those followers that follow the big bad guy or the dragon, as sometimes called, like Darth Vader. And
okay, so like minions and henchmen.
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of a difference, but between minions, but yeah, basically. And like we could use all terms interchangeably, but it's the guys that you're going to be fighting against, kind of.
Okay.
Mooks are always the bad guys.
Okay.
Like you wouldn't have an allied Mook. That version would be the red shirts, right? Named after the Star Trek red shirts.
Yeah.
That would always die on the missions.
Yeah. So what's the real difference between the two?
Well,
why can't we call the red shirts Mooks and Mooks red shirts?
I got 5 points I think that really makes what a Mook is.
Okay.
But I'm gonna just say a couple more things.
All right.
Is what they're not, I don't think a Mook is a red shirt, because I think specifically the big difference there would be bad guys are Mooks, good guys are red shirts. And then there's also those mini boss style characters you run into video games,
okay,
where they always seem to be spiders for some reason, where you go into a dungeon and there's a bunch of little spiders, you kill them all, and then there's a big spider at the end.
Yeah.
So I don't think those are Mooks either, because those are kind of like beasts, right?
Yeah. So I think beasts are more mindless, driven by instinct.
Yeah. And a good example of this is in the new Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Where they have that ice spider episode. And I don't want to talk about it too much, but basically they kind of got that thing going on.
Yeah.
And then minions are kind of like the workforce of the bad guys, I think.
Okay.
And they don't necessarily take any of the qualities from the bad guys as in general, and they're not really so much a threat. Like even in the movie The Minions, if you look at a picture of Gru and the Minions, they don't look anything like them.
Okay.
Or Van Helsing, do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
They had these little things called the Dwergi, and they don't look anything like Dracula.
Okay.
And I'd call those minions. But then, so what a henchman is they really take a lot of their characteristics from the boss themselves.
Okay.
Which is the first thing I have as one of the points in what makes a Mook. But so if that makes sense, if we understand what a Mook is, then it's kind of why would you have them there? Why would you have these kind of dumb, disposable almost characters?
Okay.
And the conclusion I came to was that, first of all, you only have so much room in your story.
Yeah.
And putting in backstory, I mean, same as an NPC, and developing Mooks, you want to stick to the heart of your story, right?
Yeah, it's really like a other side of the coin for unimportant NPCs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just fill another role.
Exactly. And then I think here's another big thing about the Mooks is they're usually the fighting force,
okay,
or some sort of martial capacity. And that's kind of where I think they differ from minions specifically. And the other thing is we love seeing, or we must, because they keep happening in movies and fiction, is that we just love seeing a whole bunch of Mooks just dying by the dozens,
yeah,
or the thousands sometimes. And so it's common in action and adventure, because it's you want to have a battle or something, but you
don't want to feel bad for these guys.
Well, that's kind of the big thing, yeah, is you don't want to feel bad with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're common in stories with black and white morality.
Okay.
The bad guys are bad. You don't want to feel bad for killing them, right? There's no empathy there.
Yeah.
They almost deserve to die because they're bad. And then that makes the good guys not bad for killing them.
Yeah, like stormtroopers or, robots, droids.
Yeah, exactly like stormtroopers. Like, the Jedi are the good guys, so they can't be bad for killing a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, they're just killing a lot of people, right? Yeah, so if you don't want mooks in your story or these henchmen, like, you'd have to, first of all, probably make your story longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's one of the reasons Game of Thrones is so long. Like, Martin, he doesn't really have any mooks in his books. Like, the only ones I can really think of that fit kind of the definition I come up with were the like those ice zombies.
Yeah.
Because they're really reflected by the Night King, right? Or the Ice King.
And really, they're more like they don't have any agency whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like the scale. Like, you can go like zombies and like hive mind would be at the very extreme end of that, where it's almost becoming something different. But yeah, so the 5 things I had to consider when making a mook or making mooks would be, the first thing is they're defined by their boss. They kind of look like a mini version or a powered down version of whoever the big bad is. And then the second thing is they're almost always impersonal, anonymous, and like faceless. It's just, they're more of a crowd, right? Like,
yeah,
there's nothing really to them. Then third thing is they're weak. Fourth thing is they're disposable. And then fifth, they come in these huge numbers.
Yeah. And so if anything, like back to the impersonal, if anything, they might have like a designation come up and that's it.
Well, exactly. Or just in general, they don't get referred to as names, but they get referred to by their rank or just by what they are in general.
Position, right? Or, hey, guardsman, go do the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, they're not individuals almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, so defined by the boss. So like I kind of said earlier, the minions don't really look like the boss, right?
Yeah.
But the mooks do, and they often all look very similar to one another and look very similar to the boss, almost like how a dog is supposed to look like its owner,
Yeah.
Or vice versa. It's really about that relationship with the big bad. It's like they're connected to the big bad in some way. And if they're not, then they're really more of a horde, right? Like, if you take zombies, there's usually not a head zombie.
No, there is, unless it's like in a necromancer or lich setting, but not one of their own, right?
Exactly. And then with that as well, they're usually bound so much with that role that they're usually marked with an undying loyalty to whoever that their boss is. Like,
they have a almost like a cult, like brainwashing.
Yeah, exactly. And that loyalty often comes through fear, and the fact that basically they just fear their boss more than they fear the good guys.
Exactly. They'd rather die in droves to the good guys, because whatever the bad guy's going to do to them, it's way worse.
Yeah, and so I just got a couple examples here, and we got some pictures we can look at.
Okay.
And I guess we could put those in the show notes, right?
Yeah.
So we got necromongers from Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah.
And just looking at the 2 pictures here, you can really see they got the same armor, and really the only difference is that the Lord Marshal's got a different helmet, different shoulder pads, and a cape.
Yeah, it's a little bit fancier, like a rank up, right?
Yeah, literally, and that's kind of how it is. It's very militaristic, right?
Yeah.
And then from one of my favorite video games, Jak and Daxter, or specifically Jak 2, there's basically these mooks called Crimson Guards.
Okay.
And they're just like these guys in red armor, and you kill them, throughout the game. But if you look at his commander, or their commander, there's another guy, and he looks kind of like a ranked up version. Then the big bad boss is Baron Praxis, and same thing. It's like an evolution, or going up the rank.
Yeah, but like the general mooks are, all Charmanders, and then like their lieutenant is a Charmeleon, and then the big bad is a Charizard.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. And then, how we're kind of talking about subverting tropes and stuff?
Yeah.
Let me know what you think of this one. Saruman and the Urukai.
Okay.
Like Saruman's this old white dude, robes and a staff, and then the Urukai are these just heavily armed and armored, just fighting Urukai, 10,000 strong. I included it because it's kind of a break from that. But
yeah, because it doesn't have to be a one-to-one like, oh, there's a clear evolution. Like your boss guy can have nothing to do with like the grunt work, realistically. And wizards in general make good boss characters because they're intelligent.
yeah, and then the Urukai aren't a classic example of a Mook anyway. I was really trying to stretch and find, I think, what could be termed probably the only example in Lord of the Rings for Mooks.
Okay.
Like maybe the orcs or the goblins in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Would also be a good match, but anyway, another example would be like Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of bringing in a bit of both of those worlds. Like it definitely looks like he's a rank up, but Darth Vader's all in black and then the Stormtroopers are all in white.
Yeah.
Kind of making that contrast so they don't just look like a bunch of mini-me's.
Yeah, so it's like clearly when you see them in a room, that's the guy who stands out. He's the boss.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. You can play with it there. And along with the matching uniforms comes the helmet. And that really brings us into the second point, which is the impersonal aspect of these Mooks. And they're almost always wearing helmets. Like if you look through any of these pictures, Travis, like every single one of them's got a helmet on or doesn't have a human face really. And that just is a way to keep making them more anonymous and not having any empathy for them. Like they're clearly the bad guys. Don't feel bad for killing them. You're not really supposed to feel anything for these guys. Keeping them as impersonal as possible.
Yeah, so that way, I mean, especially in video games where you don't feel bad for plowing through hundreds of them, right? Or it also, I think, helps in TV and film to like standardize them. That way, it's more, everyone looks the same. We don't have to, you can cast anyone really in that armor.
Yeah, and I mean that could work for any genre too, or a medium, I should say, because in film it works like that. But also in a book, you'd only have to describe them once.
Yeah, or really. Like a comic book or something. It's a lot easier to draw the same dude over and over and over again than it is to like make unique faces constantly.
Yeah, and same with video games, right? Like it's just
you do one render, maybe like one or two variations, but otherwise they're all the same.
Yeah, and then a couple lieutenants and so on, right? But after that, I would say the third thing about Mooks is they got to be weak, or maybe they don't got to be weak because there's some that aren't, but basically a lot of them are. And I like the quote from Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's Yondu's right-hand man when he's talking to Drax says, like, won't there be hundreds of Sakaran soldiers inside? And Drax just goes, I think of Sakaran as paper people.
And like that sums up when you fold a piece of paper a bunch of times and cut out like a person out of it, unfold it, right?
Yeah, and that's I like that quote because that's kind of what they are. There's no substance to them, right?
Yeah,
they're just kind of there, and the heroes, like they're more of an afterthought. They're so weak, right? Like they're thinking of this whole plan of infiltrating the Dark Aster and Guardians of the Galaxy, and yeah, they're not even considering that there's going to be hundreds of Sakaran soldiers inside, and that's all Drax has to say about it. Like,
well, that's the other thing, like blowing up the Death Star.
Yeah,
how many people? That's like a moon-sized space station that is like there's people going all the way like through the middle, right? Not just the surface. How many people died? That's huge.
Yeah, exactly, and it's this making them like kind of not human, and we could really go down a dark path here. Like in war too, like we do, like as humans, it's just kind of a natural tendency, right? Like
to dehumanize the enemy.
Exactly.
That brings up another point. The second Death Star, it was uncompleted. There were contractors just trying to feed their
Yeah.
families.
Well, exactly. And that's where you can kind of start mixing up some of the morality a little bit, is going into, maybe not in too much detail, but like
Mhm.
showing that, and then it really kind of makes you see things from a different angle.
Yeah, I
But
really like, there's a meme,
mhm.
like a Dungeons and Dragons meme, where it's like how to mess with your players, like, they kill these orcs
Oh
and
yeah,
then they
who
go through the
was that?
pockets and they find like, a picture of this orc's wife and like newborn kid. And like a letter
Yeah.
saying like, oh, I'm only need enough money. I'm in this, I'm, got this cool dungeon job. Got to make enough money to pay for our child's surgery or something.
Yeah, that's terrible. That happened. One of what was that thing you did at that community center? That D&D game campaign
Oh
you ran?
yeah, the one shot when we, I did DM'd a one shot for Game of Toba.
Yeah, and we had that woman player, and she said her DM always did things like that, and she was just waiting for the other boot to drop when we killed all those orcs.
It was really funny because like the boot wasn't gonna drop
Yeah,
for them, but it's the same world as what you guys are playing in, and there were consequences
yeah, and
outside of that like 4-hour game that we played.
so that's a good way to kind of humanize them a bit.
Yeah.
But we can get into that a little later. But so the fourth thing I would say is that mooks are disposable,
Mhm.
really, which means kind of like good for one use, and that's what they are, right? They're just like fodder usually.
Yeah.
But with that, there's also an implication that there's always going to be more of these guys, and that means that there's like they're coming from somewhere,
Mhm.
and so it's almost kind of like the clones from the Clone Wars, like Star Wars,
Yeah.
are being grown all the time. And then in the Two Towers, the movie there, they show the Uruk-hai coming out of those like mud pits, which is like
Yeah, they're
really kind of
like
gross.
making them out of magic, right?
Yeah, and then to go back to those Sakarans, I looked them up a little bit. They're mercenaries, so
Okay.
they're bought, right? You can or like the Foot Clan in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right?
Okay.
Like they're taught or instructed, but they're recruiting, and then or they could be drafted even, kind of like the stormtroopers in the new Star Wars,
Yeah.
right? With Finn, you see like, okay, these aren't necessarily bad people.
They're just been indoctrinated into thinking this way.
Yeah, but then also like they're just going to draft more. Like there's almost like an endless supply of them.
Yeah.
So that one kind of twists it a little bit because you're like, oh, these are real people under these helmets.
Yeah, and there's some good stories about like I love stories that kind of dive into the mooks and give some backstory to a set of them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a story, I think it's a comic that talks about Finn's like unit, and
really?
Specifically the guy who in the Force Awakens that yells at him traitor is like was one on his like training unit.
Oh,
and there's like a backstory there about between them.
yeah.
I didn't actually. I've seen and heard about this comic, but I haven't actually read it. But yeah, there's stuff like that. Or what I would really love to see a show. Speaking of Star Wars, I know Star Wars is just a really good example for this.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see a show where it's nothing to do with, you know, the galaxy going on or whatever, but like just stormtroopers on a ship in a workplace comedy.
Yeah,
You
well,
get
that's
like
almost kind of
a unit or one small, corvette or a frigate or something, and it's just this workplace comedy on the ship with these stormtroopers and pilots and whatever.
Yeah, there's no like fate of the universe. Maybe
No, they're just like on patrol in some far off section of the universe, and I think that would be awesome.
I think so too, and I think that's what makes the Clone Wars, the animated series, so good. Is it's almost kind of like that.
Yeah.
Except they got like the bigger arc of course, all the major stuff going on.
I really like, I really like the Clone Wars because you get to learn more about individual clones.
Yeah, and like a lot of the stuff they do in that show is really just humanizing these mooks.
Yeah,
like
which makes you feel like really bad about what happens in the end, right?
Yeah, it's so gut wrenching and a great, but like a great show to watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, then going back to being disposable, they can also be converted into service, like the necromongers from Chronicles of Riddick.
Okay.
It's kind of like a religion thing, and then or just straight up manufactured, like again
Like
the
droids.
droids from Star Wars.
Hmm.
And just looking at these pictures too, you can just see almost like the droids, and then I would say General Grievous is like their boss. What would you think of that?
Yeah. Well, he is their boss, but General Grievous is a cyborg.
Yeah.
He's not actually a droid.
No, I know, but like if you look at his armor, right?
Yeah,
next to the
yeah.
droid,
It's very reminiscent of the same like style.
yeah, and he's got a cloak on, so that seems to be a
It always
pattern there.
means boss.
Yeah. And then the last thing, I mean, if they're disposable and they're just always bringing in more and they're really weak, what makes them strong is really their numbers.
Yeah.
And that's the last of the points I had. And like they're really a second thought, and the only time a hero is really going to be in trouble when it's like just these crazy odds, like the Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings, right? Like you think Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas can never die, and then they're backed into a corner with 10,000 fighting Uruk-hai knocking at their door, you know?
Yeah, and they don't have nearly the manpower to match that.
Yeah, and well, that's the other thing is they usually outnumber the allies almost always.
Yeah.
But by having more numbers, it also decreases the individual value of each, kind of like currency, right?
Yeah.
Like when you print extra notes, if you don't increase production to spend money on that, you know, then everything really just costs more, which is what inflation is. And or even like this list, if I had made a list of 1,000 things about Mooks, it would make each point have less impact.
Yeah.
And honestly, I probably wouldn't even open it, you know, like wouldn't click on it unless, well, maybe I would, but it's kind of like, you know, when people say less is more, that's also saying at the same time, like more is less. And that's really what happens with Mooks is there's so many of them and they're so similar that you don't feel bad when one dies because there's so many more that are still there to serve the same function.
And they don't have a face, they don't have a story. They very often don't have a name. And realistically, if you were to name your 10,000 army strong, that's what your whole book would be. You'd have a dictionary of names.
And then they would no longer be Mooks by their very definition, right? By doing the story about them. But and I think that's kind of where the difference comes with the red shirts a little bit is, and now I'm not a big Star Trek fan, so you're gonna have to, or like, I don't know all that much about it, but like, there's not an unlimited supply of red shirts, is there, or is there?
I mean, there seems to be. I don't know. I'm not a huge Star Trek person. Like I know I've watched some of the shows, but I don't know like a lot about the lore. Seems like it.
Yeah, or just in general, like the trope of red shirts.
Yeah.
Like usually the allies are outnumbered, right? Like I said, so they can
That
kind of
does
have their version.
Actually,
Mooks,
now that I think about it, like in Star Trek Voyager, they're isolated. They don't have resupply lines.
Exactly, yeah.
So there is a big threat of them not having enough people to man the ship, right?
Yeah, so even though they're faceless and
they're
nameless,
a lot more conservative in that one.
And they don't wear helmets usually. Yeah. And basically, again, just all of those 5 things work together to increase the anonymity of these Mooks and just to decrease the empathy. So when you kill them, it's not so, you know, hurtful. But some people like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so a couple ways that you can just make them a little bit more empathetic so that you do feel that is really not using all 5 of the things, but you can use 3 or 4 of them together and like kind of get rid of one thing. So I had, for example, I had like the Uruk-hai, which I keep talking about, and they're keep talking about how strong they are instead of how weak they are.
Yeah, they, you know, one-on-one, they can, you know, rough someone up pretty good.
Yeah. And then, or giving them a sense of humor, like the droids in the Clone Wars series.
Like, I love the droids in the Clone Wars. They're so funny.
Like Ventress in the very first episode tells all these droids to kill Yoda. And the one droid is like, what does he look like? because like it's implying that basically the first time a droid sees a Jedi is probably also going to be the last time.
Yeah. They don't have a
Like they're
collective
not.
like knowledge of what Jedi look like because they keep dying.
Yeah. So, and then another one, like just before his tank blows up, is like, but I just got promoted. So making them
Yeah.
funny instead of, just completely flat.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to sum it up by just bringing up the 5 things again. A Mook is defined by their boss. They're impersonal. They're weak, disposable, and large, often huge numbers of them.
Yeah, that really paints a picture. And again, it takes a lot, again, from what we talked about last episode with the NPCs. It's just you need a massive amount of stuff for your army, specifically your bad guy army, but you can't really go into detail on each one, and that's where the Mook comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're made for this epic action adventure sort of thing where they're just background almost.
Yeah, and it's really fun sometimes when you take that trope and kind of throw it on its head and do go into their story, but then they automatically become not Mooks.
Yeah, then they're not Mooks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's all I got for my little spiel. We got some exciting stuff after the break, don't we, Trav?
Yeah, we do. And we will jump into the break. And welcome to the break. So I just want to say first off, thank you all for listening. It means a lot to us. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your week to give us a listen, whether it be the 40-minute episodes or an hour. It's a huge time commitment, and we just really appreciate it. And we really love you guys interacting with our stuff. We're going to try to pump out more content onto our socials. I'm really bad at it, as you guys can tell, but I'm trying. So if you guys would like to check out our notes or our outline, just send us an email, buildingblankpodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up on our socials, so Facebook, Building Blank, Collaborative World Building Podcast, Instagram, Building Blank Podcast. We also have Discord. The link will be in the description. It doesn't have a clear, URL. So yeah, you can always come hang out with us there. Also, if there's any topics you'd like us to cover, please let us know. Send us a Facebook message or a Instagram direct message or an email. Doesn't matter, Send me a letter if you know where I live, or text me if you have my number. Just if you have something you'd like to for us to cover, let us know. And anyway, I think with that, we'll get back to the show.
Yeah, nice little ad break there.
Yeah, thanks. So what we're going to do today, Greg, is I want to start off by saying thank you to everyone who submitted their NPCs, shopkeepers. We're going to read out the ones that were sent in. I just want to say before we start that I love how creative people are. And there's some ideas that I would never have thought of. So how about we just jump into it? So our good friend Lee has sent in 2, actually. And I'm gonna read the first one here, and I'll let you read the second, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll move on. So Lee says, Yaren Fleetwind is a jeweler. She's a rather young orc with an unknown background, which she won't talk about. She just showed up in town one day and started to set up shop. She cuts gems, works rare metals, and sells the results. Her favorite creations resemble tiny bejeweled animals, both mundane and fantastical. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So a common thread here throughout the people that submitted is no one told me which district they wanted their shop to be in. So I have a die here. We have a little chart, and we're gonna roll a d12. 1 through 4 is going to be the Emporion, the human district. 5 through 8 is the Burrow, the Dwarven district, and 9 through 12 is the Sanctuary. Is where they're going to end up, which district they're setting up shop. All right, so you ready? It's a 4, so she's setting up in the Emporion.
All right, so she just showed up and just
Set up
Started
shop.
making, yeah,
I like
love
it.
it. All right, do you want me to do the second one?
Yeah, you can do Lee's second character.
Okay, so this is Fergan the Chandler, an elderly halfling or gnome, whichever is in our world, and who has made candles and refined waxes and oils all his life. He specializes in elaborate tapers, like those ones that are carved for wedding presents. He has a very young apprentice, maybe a lanky young human teen named Jeff.
I love the name Jeff, especially when it's spelled Geoff, like Lee did. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say humans and halflings and gnomes because we're kind of intending it to just be like you could play D&D in this world. So
yeah,
they're gonna be both. I'm gonna roll this dice twice. Evens is gonna be a halfling, odds is gonna be a gnome, and then we're gonna roll again to see the district that they're setting up shop in.
All right, let's see what we get then.
Okay. So it's an 8. So that was what, halfling?
I think so.
Okay, I don't remember which one I said, but let's say halfling. And then I'm going to roll again, which is a 6, which is in the burrow. So he's setting up shop in the burrow.
So a halfling chandler. Am I saying that right? Is that what a chandler is? Or is it a candler?
I am unsure of the pronunciation of that word.
Let's just go with chandler.
Okay, I would have said candler because that's what they make. But, you know, if we're wrong or if you guys want to let us know what the proper pronunciation is, then yeah, just let us know. So the next submission we got from Daniel. So this is a character that a couple characters that he's previously had in his own games. So he made up two cousins from the land of Tien. Think ancient Chinese dynasty stuff, plus all mythology that goes with it, etc. So 2 cousins from a far off land, living in Delta City now. Waylon Wong and William Wang. They ran an emporium. They both dealt in magical items, also sold the basics, but Waylon had a bit of a shady side, or mischievous, as the party managed to yoink... Oh, I don't need that. To yoink a deck of many things from the side of the emporium. He may have wanted this to occur due to highly chaotic, mischief-based nature. And then he goes on to say the unique bit about the emporium was that it was a large and lavish tent that was never in the same place twice. They could move it at will via magic. You could spend the night or a few days, depending on what they thought of you. Sometimes one or both would have errands for the PCs to run with fair payment for services rendered, but both generally were very pleasant fellows who also may have been far, far older than they looked. That is really cool.
Yeah, so you just got like this tent that appears randomly.
Yeah, and it's an idea that I had in my world for a fortune teller, but I really like that. So what we're going to say is it just appears randomly in like any cities or towns that we make, or middle of the field. It can appear anywhere on the map at random.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be real fun from a DM point of view.
Yeah, like you guys are walking through a field and you see a bright flash, and all of a sudden there's a giant like tent in the middle of the field that wasn't there before. That's a really cool idea.
All right, so that now there's just a traveling tent in our world. I love it.
I love it.
All right, so I guess I'll say read the next one here, right?
Yeah.
So this one is from James. His NPC is a guy by the name of Heinrich Voss. Runs a small oddities shop and willing to buy odd, in quotation marks, items that people may stumble across or find. Within his shop, people can find almost anything, be it a rare book, potion, or simply grape shears. Heinrich himself is quiet, mild-mannered man. He always remembers a customer's name after they have visited his store, and always ready with a warm greeting and a fresh cup of tea. Patrons are always made welcome and comfortable by Heinrich with a smile and bright eyes, but perhaps they also hide a dark secret.
That's awesome. So James didn't specify which district he wanted, so we're going to just roll for that.
All right.
It's a 7.
So
Dwarven the burrow.
The Dwarven, yeah. Okay.
All right. So we got one more here. and this is probably my favorite because it just made me laugh so hard. So on Discord, Catnip Cantrip, our Catnip Cantrip, our friend Tiff, gave us one who is a merfolk named Cam quotation crustacean crusher Claude. He owns
Okay,
Cam's,
wait, what? You gotta say it again.
Cam crustacean crusher in like quotes Claude or Claude.
Okay.
Cam Claude, crustacean crusher.
He owns, that's his nickname is Crustacean.
Yeah,
Crusher.
yeah.
Okay.
He owns Clams. It's such a tongue tie, and I love it so much. He owns Cam's Clam Corral. His home was basically invasive species by clams, so his family had no food, and he got the Crustacean Crusher title when he became a war hero in the Fourth Crab War. And I love this because this implicates that now there's an event in history. No, there's 4 events in history at least.
Yeah.
Where there was a war with crabs. And I love it.
Yeah.
He's a really shady looking barkeep who only speaks in sign language and writing. Everyone thinks they are a rogue, trying to thieves' cant at them, or a wizard casting magic on them, but in reality, they just sold their hearing to a Fey patron in exchange for a recipe for the perfect, and this is perfect in all caps, bolded, perfect clam chowder, which is what they are famous for. Even though the town is scared of them for being seedy, the people always come back for the clam chowder. All the townsfolk gossip about how the chowder is so good. So I love this entry for a number of reasons. One, adding to the lore of the world with the crab wars.
Yeah.
And it just makes me smile so hard. But also, he's a dude with he's a merfolk, right? So a mermaid, merman, etc. So I had an idea for where the thing is. So either, and hear me out. I don't know. I want your opinion here. Is the clam corral? Is it at like the docks where he can swim around and serve his patrons, like in a warehouse with like water in the bottom? Or
like almost like a tiki bar.
Almost like a tiki bar, yeah, where he can like move around, because otherwise, how does he move around? Or does he like move around in like a bathtub wheelchair cross in like a regular building?
Yeah, or it could be kind of like remember Abe Sapien from Hellboy, where he's just basically got that tank, and then maybe there's like
but Abe had legs.
Levers.
Merfolk have like a fishtail.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so, I think maybe the first idea then,
where it's like you go into this building and it's just like docks with tables and then like water underneath, or does he roll around in a bathtub with wheels?
Okay, which I don't know, that second one kind of grosses me out.
Which?
Just rolling around in a bathtub? I don't know.
I think it's hilarious, and I'm more inclined to go that way.
Okay, fine. Cam Crustacean Crusher Claude can be pushed around who's pushing him around in this bathtub?
No, he's got like really jacked arms because he's like wheeling himself around. Like these are like wheelchair wheels. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Right? So you can like grab them and spin and do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I don't. I'm reading this again, and it's like invasive species, like it's a verb by clams, and then he gets back at them by making the clam chowder.
Yeah,
he gets vengeance in the end by just killing a ton of clams all the time,
and then selling their corpses. And
also, like he got invasive species by clams, and so he became a war in the crab war. It has nothing to do with clams.
I don't know if there's a cause and effect here, but maybe like because he got invasive species and had to leave, his family had to leave home, he then joined the army to provide for them, and then he got his title. I don't know. I'm not going to justify it. I just think it's awesome. And hilarious because it opens up so many questions, and yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So, go ahead.
we're gonna roll for district again.
Okay. All right.
Another 7. Everyone loves the Dwarven district. All right, so that's awesome. I again want to thank everyone who submitted. If if anyone wants to submit more, or we're not going to take the post down, so just throw it all on that post or send us a direct message, and we will read them out on the air at some point. All right, and with that, I think it's time for our weekly inspiration.
Okay, then.
Great. So, what inspired you this week, Greg?
All right. Well, this week I've been working on. You remember we're thinking about doing a webcomic, right?
Yeah.
So I've been drawing our 2 characters and
doing concept art.
Yeah, and you wanted to make a guy named Antonius.
Yeah.
Who's like a wizard archaeologist, which I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then my guy would be like kind of like a hired muscle guy.
Okay.
And I knew right from the beginning I wanted to make an orc, so
yeah,
I took one of the orc names and named him Garuntis.
Okay.
And I was just thinking, like, because I kind of wanted to make it funny if we're going to do a webcomic. So this isn't so much inspiration, it's just like kind of what I was thinking at the time. And
yeah, what you've been working on.
Yeah, and so I thought it'd be kind of funnier if maybe my guy gets transformed, like maybe he's a druid,
Okay.
or even if he's not, in any case, he gets transformed into some sort of like cute little lovable creature.
Okay.
But then he's still supposed to be this wizard, your wizard's bodyguard.
Okay.
And then over the course of maybe the webcomic, as we're figuring out this world and showing it through a different medium, we're also just telling the tale of these 2 guys and trying to get this Garuntis back into his body.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's like a goal to strive for. Yeah.
Yeah. So keep everyone updated on that as it comes to be. But so that I know that's a little bit of a cop out for the weekly inspiration. But
hey, you know what? That's what you've been working on, right? So.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Before I'd been working on writing a lot, so I was living in that world, and now I'm drawing, so it's a bit different way of thinking about things. But
yeah, that's cool, and I've seen some of your drawings and the concept art, and it looks really good.
Oh well, thank you. It's kind of self-conscious about my drawing, just from kid stuff, I guess. But
yeah,
I'm getting back into it now, and it's super fun. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and I showed the comic, the like sample one that you gave me, to Emma, and she was like, "Oh, that's so cute."
Yeah, so just trying a couple of different things,
different styles and stuff.
Yeah. So how about you? What's your weekly inspiration?
So we're starting up our the D&D game that I play in Emma's game. It's starting up on Discord, and I play a wizard, and we're low level, so I'm like, death is around every corner. I can die at any time, right? Because wizards are squishy. So I've come up with a backup character concept where it's based on something I said a couple weeks back. Remember the Goliath Vikings?
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So this Goliath, her name is Yrsa of the Reindeer clan, and she's going to be a barbarian fighter type multi-class. And I've been just thinking about like her aesthetic. So she wears like this like bear pelt armor, not really armor, but like it's like a half cape with like a hood, and then like a kilt thing.
Okay.
Right. And made out of like bear, right? And the hood is like the bear head. And I've been thinking about like she's all about axes and stuff. So she's got like a bunch of throwing axes and then a great axe that she like mains. And it's kind of based on the armor I'm using in the whole idea basically came from I'm playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and the armor I have is this like bear berserker armor, and that's kind of where I got the whole idea from. And I've been playing with that, and yeah, that's kind of like I've made up character, and I was thinking about doing like a little like story with her, like a short story.
Okay.
Because
So
like I don't know if I'm ever actually going to get to use her, but you know, it's good to have backups.
okay, so you haven't used her yet.
No, no, no.
Okay.
It's I don't know if I'm ever going to. Just in
All right.
case
Well,
my beloved Poncho dies.
oh no. If you don't get to use it though, I mean, you can always bring her into our world, right?
Exactly. So I was thinking about, and we're going to talk about this in another episode at some point. But I think um, I might bring her in as an NPC in my world, or at least in this one, maybe at some point.
All right. Cool. I like her.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. She's kind of gruff and like takes no shit, and you know, out to kind of like prove her glory kind of thing.
Yeah, I like the play of the name on like Ursa, which means bear, right?
Yeah,
And she's got all the bear armor.
Yeah, well, like Yrsa, YRSA in Scandinavian in is literally translate to she bear.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's kind of what she's all about. And the reindeer clan thing is because the boat that I have, I've customized it to have like this reindeer theme, and it looks really cool. So
cool. I like reindeer.
Yeah,
they're just like they're just civilized or domesticated caribou, right?
I think they're their own. I'm not sure. I'm not a huge. I don't know the specifics on reindeer science, but I pretty much that's the gist of it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess that's it for the week then, eh?
Yeah. So I want to again thank everyone for listening. If you guys want to get in contact with us, you can hit us up on Facebook, Building Blank Collaborative World Building Podcast. You can hit us up on Instagram, Building Blank Podcast. You can always email us too, buildingblankpodcast@gmail.com. I know I said this in the break, but if you guys have any questions or comments or want us to, you know, cover a certain topic, let us know. We have a Discord open, so you can check out that link in the description. And yeah, our YouTube is all caught up is another thing. So if you would rather have that playing on your computer or something, go check it out. There's no video right now, but we're playing with some different formats and thinking of some different things. It's kind of really hard when we're remote. So we're planning on doing some in studio filming at some point, but it's kind of hard with us being in two different studios, right? So eventually we'll get that going. And yeah, so thank you guys for listening. I want everyone to stay safe out there with, make sure you're following whatever restrictions are in your area.